since 10 violent prisoners have escaped from a jail down in New Orleans. 6 still remain at large, 4 of which have been apprehended. Actually, scratched that. Needed to jump in here and add something additional that took place after filming what I'm sharing with you right now. Folks, just yesterday, not only would it be Sterling Williams who was arrested, the jail worker, but a 5th fugitive would be captured, and who was the youngest of the group, 19-year-old Corey Boyd, originally incarcerated for a second-degree murder charge, was located in a residence less than 2 miles away from the facility in the 1400 block of Iberville Street. And with this 5th apprehension, it's really illustrating this theory that we had initially, that all of the youngest of this group of 10 would be the first to be captured, leaving the 5 remaining fugitives the oldest of the bunch. I'll be sharing more with you about Corey Boyd and the remaining 5 fugitives as things continue to develop. It was just yesterday that we learned a jail maintenance worker, 33-year-old Sterling Williams, was arrested and charged for helping to orchestrate and carry out this escape. And had it not been for him, this escape may have never even happened. Not only has Sterling Williams been arrested, he's also been charged with 10 counts of principal to simple escape and 1 count of malfeasance in office. New Orleans fugitives, armed and dangerous, jail employee linked to escape arrested. One of the inmates threatened to stab the employee with a shank, a homemade knife, according to the employee's statement in an arrest warrant affidavit. I'm just going to go ahead and say what I imagine everybody is probably thinking at this point. Of course he would say that. I can't understand why this guy would help these 10 violent prisoners escape in the first place. Did he know them from the neighborhood? Did he feel some sort of compassion for them? Was he paid to do so? Because to be honest with you, I'm not buying the fact that he did this because they threatened him. It's been reported that authorities believe this was not help that he provided to these guys that was just done so in one day. This was potentially days long, if not weeks long, help that he provided to these would-be 10 escapees. There was an entire piece of rebar that had to be cut out. And there's a lot of speculation as to whether that was done from behind where the cell was or from the cell side once the toilet and sink was removed from the wall. Was it this jail maintenance worker, Sterling Williams, who cut that piece of rebar? Or was it the prisoners with some sort of makeshift tool? Regardless, the only person who would have been able to cut off the water so as to not flood the entire cell block and cell when that toilet and sink was removed from the wall would have been the jail maintenance worker. The prisoners would not have access to be able to cut off the water themselves. I'm just having a real hard time, though, understanding why this guy would provide help, knowing that all of this would lead right back to him. How naive do you have to be to think nobody's going to come looking at you for this? There had to be some sort of incentive, because the threat of violence, it really ain't doing it for me. And if you were that scared, buddy, you shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. But now you don't have to worry about it, and now you're probably even more scared because now you're locked up in the same exact jail where you helped 10 prisoners escape from. There's got to be some major irony in all of that. And also, not to mention, I bet you this guy's not being housed on the first floor. I think that they probably have learned their lesson at this point. Like, you know what? Maybe we should keep certain prisoners on the upper floors of this jail. The maintenance worker arrested in connection to the New Orleans jail escape didn't just help 10 inmates break out. He unleashed armed and dangerous fugitives on the community and beyond by extensively colluding with them. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrells acknowledged in a Fox News interview that people are on edge after the daring May 16 breakout. The jail employee Sterling Williams, 33, has been charged with multiple counts of being a principal to simple escape and malfeasance in office. Maybe potentially a little bit of an oxymoron right there, being charged with principal to simple escape. Because to be honest, this escape didn't seem all that simple to me. Williams admitted to investigators he complied with a demand from one of the inmates to shut off the water to the cell, allowing the escapees to rip out a toilet and sink unit and climb through a hole in the wall that created. The sheriff's office has said the inmates appeared to have used a tool to cut through the steel bars behind the sink and toilet fixture. So it looks like it was the prisoners who cut that piece of rebar. Worker may have helped over multiple days. Instead of reporting the inmate's request, Williams complied with it, allowing the inmates to carry out their scheme to successfully escape. In an arrest affidavit, Williams said one of the inmates threatened to stab him with a shank if he did not follow instructions. Authorities said Williams, whose bond was set at $1.1 million, was still at fault for lending his assistance, which, according to Merle, extended beyond the early morning when the inmates fled. What do they mean by that? We have an hour lapse between the footage that we have of the prisoner jimmying the door, trying to wrestle free that defective lock, and when we see those 10 escapees jumping off of that back loading dock. What was going on inside of this facility during that 60-minute gap? Was Sterling Williams hiding these 10 would-be escapees, letting them know when the coast is clear? Did he help them every step of the way until they reached that loading dock? And if he didn't, folks, there are still other jail staff members who have been placed on unpaid leave who potentially could be charged in this situation as well. Merle pointed out that without his cooperation, the escape would have been detected. Obviously, when they cut through the pipes, they would have flooded the cell, and that would have alerted people to a problem. We think it was more than just that night, Merle said. We believe this person had multiple days of involvement. None of that particularly matters at this point because what's done is done. Now it is all about getting these remaining 6 fugitives apprehended and put back behind bars where they've got time to serve, and a lengthy amount of it as well. Plus tack on that additional charge of escape that's going to add quite a bit more time to whatever time they're already facing. And some of these guys undoubtedly are facing life sentences. So what do they really have to lose in this? I just hope that by the time all of this is said and done, that all 10 of these individuals are apprehended peacefully without any additional violence, because anything else that comes from this is only going to be just that much more intensified to how terrible and how negatively viewed the judicial system and the sheriff's office is already being viewed down in New Orleans. But with mention of all of this, folks, that brings to mind another interesting thing to consider here. What are the chances that these guys remain free? New Orleans jail escape. What are the odds that all fugitives will be caught? Well, the whereabouts of the 6 inmates who ran from the New Orleans jail by climbing through a hole behind a toilet remains unknown. Experts say there's a strong likelihood the escapees will get caught eventually. As law enforcement officials hunt for the escapees, the odds of their recapture are very high. Bryce Peterson, an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, who has conducted extensive research on inmate escapes, told USA Today. Well over 90% of inmates who escape will be recaptured, Peterson said. So you're telling me there's a chance, a 10% chance, according to this information, that one or some or all of these remaining fugitives could potentially remain free? I highly doubt that. You've got every agency under the sun looking for these guys. And not just that, civilians, I imagine, as well. Freelancers, bounty hunters. Dog the bounty hunter has even been brought in as an expert analyst in this case. FanDuel, I believe it was FanDuel, is taking bets on who is going to be the last man standing. That's got to be a meme, right? Like FanDuel wouldn't bet. I've seen betting websites for elections, so I wouldn't be surprised if you could bet on this. But if you were to ask me, my expertise being in criminal justice as well, unfortunately, the kind from the other side of the fence where the grass isn't always greener. If you were to ask me what I think the odds are of these remaining 6 remaining free, I'd say it's way less than a 10% chance. I'd say it's probably a 99.9% chance all of these guys are going to get caught. You have garnered national attention. You have made a mockery of not just the New Orleans Justice Department, but every agency involved in this is probably not looking at any of you too pleasantly, giving the mocking messages that you left scribbled on the wall. Too easy, LOL. Catch me when you can. You're going to feel the full force of the judicial system at this point. New Orleans has facial recognition cameras, at least in the French Quarter. It could be citywide, could be statewide. You got a nationwide bolo out for you. If this was a video game, you would have 5 stars. Will any of these guys turn themselves in? Why would they, though? At this point, you've come this far. You're so close. Are any of them outside of the city of New Orleans, or even better, the state of Louisiana? At this point, they said it was an 8 to 10 hour gap before anybody even knew that they were missing in the first place. That is plenty of time to get up out of the state. And though I imagine most all of these individuals don't have very much of a means to an end, and it would be my bet that most all of them are captured within the state of Louisiana, if not within the city of New Orleans, there's probably 1 or 2 of them who do have somebody and some help from the outside. A girlfriend, a baby mama, a cousin, a brother, a sister, a mother, somebody who's willing to risk it all for their baby. And for those folks, I do feel a little bit of mixed feelings for. You're wrapped up in something that you shouldn't have to be. And best believe me, when they catch whoever you're harboring, you're going to go down faster than the Titanic right along with them. So again, this guy says 90% of inmates who escape will be recaptured, but he also goes on to say, and with some of the New Orleans inmates facing long sentences, the national media attention, and federal, state, and local authorities all working together, I'd put that figure much closer to 100%. Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Escapees on the run likely have a network of resources. Exactly how long fugitives can avoid capture depends on how much planning they put into their escape. Anthony Caglasoni, an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and a former U.S. Marshal and Secret Service agent, told USA Today, they likely have a network of resources that the others didn't have, or those caught were sloppier with their planning. Also, if the fugitives had enough preparation to escape, they are highly motivated not to get caught, especially if they had a significant amount of time to think about this between deciding when they were going to do it, where they were going, and who was going to help them. The last thing on their mind is getting caught. All of that shit sounds good until you put it into motion, right? Because when you show up at somebody's door and you're like, hey, here I am. And they're like, holy shit, you're supposed to be in jail. And you're like, no, you remember I told you I was going to escape. I did it. That's a lot to ask of somebody. I got to imagine that when you escape, most people ain't really going to want to have shit to do with that, right? If they got any kind of common sense at all. But then again, we just heard about a jail maintenance worker, 33 years old, who involved himself in this situation for whatever reason, thinking some kind of a way he wouldn't get implicated. They're never going to know it was me who cut off the water. But there he is, sitting in the same jail that these guys escaped from on a $1.1 million bond, probably on the 7th floor of that building. You don't have much money on you, no real change of clothes, and you have to blend in to stay on the run for a certain amount of time. And you're going to need shelter. You're going to need food. I have no doubt some of them are being harbored or assisted by someone they know, undoubtedly. But also keep in mind that every contact these guys have ever known in their life, ex-girlfriend from middle school, anybody, the authorities are down on these people. So you ain't going to be safe, especially if you're still in the city. You know, I think to myself, these guys, they got to be in the sewer. They got to be in the woods somewhere. Could they survive off the grid? Are they built like that to do so? Because that's the type shit you're going to have to get on. You're going to have to get on some Navy SEAL type shit, some covert SEAL Team 6 type shit to evade capture. And I don't give a damn how street, how thorough, how thuggin', how rugged you may be. I don't think any of us is really built to withstand this sort of pressure, this sort of a net, a rope, if you will, that is ever tightening around this city. So again, In my particular opinion, it won't be long before all of these guys are apprehended. And yes, I do believe one or maybe two of these guys will evade capture for a longer period of time than the majority of them. But I do believe that even those guys who stay out just a little bit longer, they're going to get caught too. Folks, I just wanted to share this information with you, and I hope you found some interest in this. If you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you think about this and how long do you think it's going to be before the rest of these guys are caught. Personally, I don't feel like it's going to be that long at all. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace!